Coverage you can count on. KOMU 8 News Today starts now.
Good morning. Thanks for waking up with KOMU 8 News Today. I'm Angie Bailey. It is May 25th. It's 6 a.m.
Yeah, I'm Tim Schmidt. Looks like another day with rain in your forecast, so get ready to have the umbrella or just like a rain jacket or something like that for today. I think you're going to need it at least for the morning, through the lunch hour and into the early part of the afternoon. Right now, the latest trends do show some drier weather expected later this afternoon through the early part of the evening. So hopefully some dry hours there, but there's definitely a noticeable mugginess outside. So the dew point numbers are high and the temperature is not really warming up much and gives us that kind of a very basement-like feel outside. Right now, temperatures are currently in the mid-60s, and there are some visibility issues outside with some patchy areas of some fog or some mist trying to develop. This will eventually just become more rain as the day goes on. So look for off and on shower and thunderstorm activity through the morning through about 2 p.m. today.
Now, an awful story to tell you more about this morning. 19 children and 2 teachers dead after a gunman opened fire at an elementary school yesterday afternoon. It's now the deadliest school shooting in Texas history. The governor, Greg Abbott, says the gunman, 18-year-old Salvador Ramos, walked into Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, with a handgun and a rifle and started firing. Officials say that was not the only crime scene he was connected to.
In addition to that, it is being reported that the subject shot his grandmother right before he went into the school.
Investigators say the gunman acted alone and he was killed at the scene. The shooting in Texas comes just 10 days after there was another mass shooting at a supermarket in Buffalo, New York. It adds to the increased violence in the U.S. in the past several years. An FBI report found that in 2021, active shooter incidents surged 97% compared to 2017. The trend says lawmakers are wanting to find a solution to stop the violence.
Just days after a shooter walked into a grocery store to gun down African American patrons, we have another Sandy Hook on our hands. What are we doing? There have been more mass shootings than days in the year.
According to the Gun Violence Archive, there have been more than 200 mass shootings already this year. That's a live look from Washington, D.C. Flags at the Capitol and the White House are flying at half-staff this morning to honor the victims of this latest school shooting. Coming up in Nonstop News, we'll have a live report from Texas with the latest developments. Here in mid-Missouri, there was a shooting in Boone County and it has neighbors still in shock. The sheriff's office says that it happened about 3 a.m. yesterday morning on West Bellevue Street. KOMU 8 News was at the scene hours later, and the aftermath was still visible. There were bullet holes in an apartment building. There was broken glass and a shattered window at a nearby car. Deputies say a man was taken to the hospital with a gunshot wound. He is expected to survive. We spoke with a woman who says one of the neighbors was inside one of the homes that was hit by the gunfire.
I will say the building or the apartment up above, there was so many gunshots in her house, and she has a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old, and there was a bullet probably inches from, right above her kid's bed.
KOMU 8 News asked a captain with the Boone County Sheriff's Department if there's a suspect. They said that the case is still under investigation. Officials are encouraging anyone with any new information to call the Sheriff's Department, or they can call Crime Stoppers. That stays anonymous, and that number is 875-TIPS. After Governor Parson signed into law a new congressional map, some Boone County voters are in a new district, and that means that they'll have different ballots in the August primary elections. It includes revising voter registration records digitally to make sure they're in the right congressional district. Lawmakers passed a redistricting map 2 weeks ago. Governor Parson signed that bill on May 18th. Clerks had until yesterday evening to make any revisions to voting records. The new map split Boone County into the 3rd and the 4th districts. Boone County Clerk Brianna Lennon says knowing the map was coming did help her office prepare.
It has just been a few dedicated people, and we have worked on the weekends and in the evenings to get that done. But because we knew that it was coming and because we knew that we could prep a lot of the stuff, we've kind of worked around it. And
Lennon emphasized that voters do not have to do anything during this period. All the information regarding who will be on the ballot will be sent out in the sample ballots, and KOMU.com's got a link for any access to that information as well. A Columbia man pleaded guilty after posting pictures and videos of illegal firearms and drugs to Snapchat. A 37-year-old Chauncey Howard is subject to a mandatory minimum sentence of 5 years in federal prison without parole and a maximum sentence of life in federal prison without parole. A sentencing hearing is scheduled after a pre-sentence investigation is done. A judge sentenced a Camden County man for the 2016 killing of a mother and her daughter. Stephen Ray Inslee received 2 life sentences. The judge added 47 years for other charges, including arson and armed criminal action. Inslee was found guilty in March during a bench trial. The 2 victims, Danielle Smith and Teresa Jackson, were Inslee's neighbors. There's an effort in Jefferson City to get more people trying to wear sunscreen this summer. Miles Against Melanoma donated 15 dispensers that will be filled with sunscreen in the Jefferson City area. The dispensers are going to be throughout the community at the pools, the parks, at camps, and campgrounds. The president of Miles Against Melanoma says the sunscreen is free and volunteers will be refilling those dispensers as needed. One doctor also says the dispensers will serve a greater purpose for people.
We wanted to do something to prevent melanoma rather than just attack it once somebody had it.
It's also nice, honestly, just as a reminder to remember to use sunscreen and practice, safe sun practices when they're outside.
Miles Against Melanoma is an organization that raises money and awareness for skin cancer. The group spent about $6,000 to put up those dispensers in Jefferson City. Something to think about. There's plenty of times where me and my kids are like, do we have any sunscreen? And I usually do in the car, but I know that if you got some right there, you'll use it.
Yeah, at the pool, I always I gotta lather it on. But sometimes, what if I didn't bring it? Then what's the next option or something like that? Golf course, another thing.
Yeah, for sure.
You have to put it on. I'm going to move my SunSense explainer here to this little spot right here. I think this is appropriate. The SunSense number brought to you by KC Dermatology Center and Medical Spa. It's up near a 5 for today for your UV index. We have a lot of clouds today and tomorrow, not a lot of sunshine, so sunburn times will be over an hour. But they do recommend an SPF of 30 or higher for the upcoming weekend. As the weekend, well, it's going to be Memorial Day weekend, and we'll see a lot of sunshine with the UV index values at 8 or 9.
And starting today, you'll have a new choice. If you want to get out there and buy a little fresh produce, coming up, the details on the new midweek Columbia Farmers Market. And there's a live look over Columbia Regional Airport at 6:08.
KOMU 8 First Alert Weather.
All right, going on 6:11 this morning, and it looks like our temperatures outside currently are holding in the mid-60s, and I think that's where we're going to stay for the next couple of hours.
To lose a child is like having a piece of your soul ripped away. There's a hollowness in your chest. You feel like you're being sucked into it and never going to be able to get out.
This morning, the nation's mourning the loss of nearly 24 people, mostly children, in a Texas elementary school shooting. 19 children and 2 teachers were shot and killed. Now the tight-knit community of Uvalde is in shock because the nation's latest mass shooting was carried out by one of their own. NBC's Wendy Wolfert has the latest from Texas.
Another mass shooting in America. This time, shots fired and lives lost at an elementary school.
There was a mass casualty incident at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas.
According to the Texas Department of Public Safety, 19 students, 2nd through 4th graders, and 2 teachers were killed. Governor Greg Abbott says the gunman abandoned his vehicle, walked into the school before midday Tuesday, armed with a handgun and possibly a rifle, then opened fire. Police swarmed the campus.
They locked down the school really quickly, and they started evacuating children out through breaking windows and pulling children out through the windows and getting them to safety.
But the school, not the only crime scene.
In addition to that, it is being reported that the subject shot his grandmother right before he went into the school.
The gunman, identified as Salvador Ramos, an 18-year-old resident of Uvalde. Investigators say he is among the dead and acted alone. the deadliest school shooting in Texas history.
My heart was broken today.
Another community pleading for prayers for more lives cut tragically short. Wendy Woolfolk, NBC News, Uvalde, Texas.
In Washington, President Biden and the Democrats are renewing calls for stricter gun control laws. Shortly after the news broke about the school shooting yesterday, Connecticut Democratic Senator Chris Murphy tried to urge his colleagues to act. Despite recent polls consistently showing Americans strongly support expanded background checks for gun buyers, there's little agreement in the Senate about what can be done to prevent more massacres.
I'm here on this floor to beg, to literally get down on my hands and knees and beg my colleagues. Find a path forward here.
There's no doubt we need to do more to keep children in schools safe. We know from past experience that the most effective tool for keeping kids safe is armed law enforcement on the campus.
Texas officials say a school resource officer and 2 police officers in Texas were unable to stop the body armor-clad shooter yesterday. They had to wait for a tactical team to get there. During an address to the nation, President Biden called for action.
As a nation, we have to ask, when in God's name are we going to stand up to the gun lobby? When in God's name we do what we all know in our gut needs to be done?
When news of the attack broke, President Biden called Texas Governor Greg Abbott and offered any assistance from the federal government. Now the latest when it comes to the pandemic, a new study found many COVID long haulers suffer neurological symptoms months after their initial infection. Researchers from Northwestern University analyzed groups of patients after their initial visit to a long haul clinic. They found 15 months after getting COVID, most long haulers continued to experience symptoms like brain fog, numbness, tingling, and headaches, dizziness, blurred vision, and fatigue. But they did not notice significant changes in the frequency of neurological symptoms between the first and the follow-up appointments. Now to Georgia, where Governor Brian Kemp will defeat former President Donald Trump's backed challenger, and that's former Senator David Perdue. That's according to CNN projections. Kemp's win is a blow to the former president's efforts to try to punish him for refusing to overturn the 2020 presidential election results. Kemp will face Democrat Stacey Abrams in November in a rematch of their 2018 race, which Abrams narrowly lost. Now back here in mid-Missouri, the Columbia Farmers Market will be open on Wednesdays as well as Saturdays starting this week. The first day of the Wednesday market is today at the MU Healthcare Pavilion, and that's where we have KOMU8's Jaden Jagtiani. He's joining us live, so good morning, Jaden. Give us the details.
Good morning. The new Wednesday market will be open throughout the summer here at the MU Healthcare Pavilion from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. Today at 3, there will be children's activities, food trucks, and even live music. This market is in partnership with the Parks and Recreation Department, and the city will hold its food truck roundup at the market on the 2nd and 4th Wednesday of every month. The Chamber of Commerce will also be present at today's opening for ribbon cutting. The executive director of the market says Wednesday is the right day.
That gives their crops a little more time. You know, you can't, if you got to pick everything Friday for the Saturday market, you need to give those crops a little more time to kind of continue growing to harvest again for another market.
The market will also be open during its normal hours on Saturday from 8 a.m. to noon. Live in Columbia, Jaden Jagtiani, KOMU8 News.
Gas prices will make it more expensive by a lot to travel this Memorial Day. Does it seem to be stopping people, though, from enjoying the holiday? We'll have the details for you after the break. And there's a live look over the Missouri River. It's going to be a rainy morning out there. Tim will have your details. It's 6:20. Welcome back. It's now 6:23. It's almost Memorial Day, and this year the holiday weekend's shaping up to be a pretty busy one for travelers. AAA is projecting that 39 million Americans will travel 50 miles or more for the weekend, and that's up 8.3% from last year, and it's close to pre-pandemic numbers. However, it's going to cost more to travel than it did last year. The average lowest airfare is about 6% higher compared to last year. The cost of gas has climbed a lot. It's above $4 per gallon in every state. That's actually actually the first time that's ever happened.
For the first time ever, we are at $4 or more per gallon in every state in the country. We've never seen that before. And the national average right now is $4.59, and it's been $4.59 for about 3 or 4 days, which is unusual because it's been going up every single day. So for it to remain flat for 3 or 4 days, that's a little odd, but it might just be taking a breather before grinding back up again.
AAA says one way to save is for travelers to plan ahead those road trips, searching for the best gas prices along their routes. And there is one positive note, though. Surprisingly, rental car costs have actually gone down about 16% compared to last year. Meanwhile, sales of newly constructed homes are down nearly 17% as of just last month. A joint report from federal agencies shows sales of new homes dropped to the lowest level since the beginning of the pandemic. Demand is still strong, but rising inflation and surging in borrowing costs is taking away homebuyers' purchasing power.
All right, well, it looks like temperatures over the next couple of days will be at or around normal for this time of the year, highs in the 60s and 70s. Once we get to the weekend, though, a little bit warmer outside, back into the 80s. I have us at 90 degrees almost for Memorial Day on Monday of next week. Over the next 5 to 8 days, I see Friday being the best day out of the week, and I'll touch on that here in a second. Let's get to those rain chances for today. You will want rain gear and an umbrella or a rain jacket for much of the morning or early this afternoon if you have to run any errands. There's a good chance you might get rained on here this morning, so look for that. Maybe we get some late day dry time from about 4 to 8 p.m. I think after 8 p.m. we're back to more rain chances through tonight and now all day on Thursday. But here's the reason why Friday is going to be the best day out of the week weather-wise. The temperatures will be a little low. The humidity will be down. It's not going to be as muggy as today, but also we get back to some sunshine, and that'll carry us into a nice sunny Memorial Day weekend. Let's take a look over mid-Missouri. That's the Columbia Regional Airport. KOMU 8 News Today. We'll be right back.
KOMU 8 First Alert Weather.
Well, it looks like we'll be tracking some rain for the next couple of hours. I think from now through about 1 or 2 p.m.
Here's what's happening right now. Russian lawmakers passed a bill which removes the age limit for professional soldiers to join the military, and that could be a way for the Russian armed forces to expand recruitment. The lower house of the Russian parliament scrapped an age limit of 40 for people signing up for their first voluntary military contract. Russian authorities have said that only volunteer contract soldiers are being sent to fight in Ukraine. Now we have a better idea of when more baby formula is going to be showing up in stores. Abbott says that it's going to reopen its plant at the heart of the nationwide recall on June 4th. Supplies should start hitting store shelves about 2 weeks later. In the meantime, the second round of Operation Fly formula is arriving today. British company Kendall Nutricare now has FDA permission to send another 2 million cans of formula in June. The Department of Transportation is relaxing regulations for truckers who are trying to help with the shortage.
Begin to see hopefully more supply in the next couple of weeks, and over the course of several weeks we should see a lessening of the tremendous stress that people have been feeling.
Also today, formula manufacturers will appear before a House subcommittee on Capitol Hill, and the Senate is poised to vote on a $28 million House bill, and that could help the FDA combat the crisis. Some Republicans say they doubt the measure will do much good. In other national news, Indiana lawmakers voted to override the recent governor's veto of a transgender bill. The measure bans transgender girls from participating in girls' school sports. By overriding the governor's veto, Indiana joins more than a dozen other states across the country that have adopted similar laws. Seattle Pacific University students staged a walkout yesterday after the university's Board of Trustees voted to uphold an anti-LGBTQ rule. And the rule bans members of the LGBTQ community from working at the private Christian liberal arts university. The board said in a statement that it chose to remain in communion with the Free Methodist Church, which defines marriage as a union between a man and a woman. Looking ahead, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration is predicting a 7th consecutive above-average hurricane season. NOAA is estimating 14 to 21 named storms that are expected, with 3 to 6 of those being major hurricanes. Those could have sustained winds of at least 111 miles per hour. One administrator kind of explains why, the reasoning behind the abnormal hurricane season.
We are in a continuing La Nina cycle right now, impacts on things like the temperature of the ocean in the Atlantic, which is higher right now.
Several experts urge anyone that could be in the path of a potential hurricane to be ready. Hurricane season is June 1st and it runs through November 30th. You were telling me more about how La Nina actually makes bigger hurricanes
Yeah,
often.
well,
or storms.
Hurricanes just do not like the jet stream. The jet stream will actually shear those storms apart. But what's happening with the La Nina pattern, it's the converse of what you get with the El Nino, where the storms are a little bit more frequent over parts of Central America. The storms are actually more frequent over India right now and parts of Southeast Asia.
Okay.
Well, those little pressure systems continue to beat on the earth a bit, and the next thing you know, those storms are over the Atlantic Ocean. And you just, there's a lot of teleconnections
this
with
guy's
this.
zone
But
here, yeah.
yeah, that's the whole reason why we expect a higher frequency of storms this year.
Got it.
There you go.
As families across the country are struggling to find formula, officials say scammers are also trying to take advantage of parents coming up how to avoid it. Welcome back. It's now 6:37, so we're just a few minutes away from our 15 minutes of uninterrupted, nonstop news, weather, and traffic. First, let's send it over to Tim, though. There could be a little break in the rain today, you said, if you're planning around it?
Yeah, maybe later this afternoon. Until then, I think it's just kind of off and on rain showers.
All right, thanks, Tim. Internet scammers are trying to take advantage of the recent baby formula shortage and scamming people. One tech consultant recommends to check reviews and beware of third-party vendors. He also advises that you use a credit card over a debit card because it can be easier to get your money back if you are scammed. One doctor advises using your pediatrician first before trying to find formula online.
Your health departments can be useful, as well as your pediatrician, family physician, primary care offices.
And the doctor also encourages people to be considerate. She recommends that you only buy the amount of formula you need and not to try to stockpile. A man suspected of shooting and killing a random New York subway rider this weekend is now in custody. Andrew Abdullah was wanted on a murder charge for Sunday's shooting of Daniel Enriquez, a Goldman Sachs employee who was on his way to brunch. Officials say it was an unprovoked act of violence. Abdullah has 11 prior arrests along with an open gun case in Harlem. And an Iraqi citizen who entered the U.S. in September of 2020 allegedly wanted to kill former President George W. Bush. That's according to a search warrant obtained by NBC News. The FBI says that the suspect from Columbus, Ohio, wanted to provide material support to ISIS. He planned to smuggle people into the country via the Mexican border to kill President Bush. They would have then worked to obtain firearms, a large van with a sliding door, and assassinate former President Bush. There's no suggestion in the document that the former president was ever actually in danger, though. Hundreds of patients of an ex-gynecologist in California will get part of a $374 million settlement. More than 500 lawsuits were filed against James Heaps and UCLA, where Heaps was a campus gynecologist for 35 years. He's accused of sexual misconduct. Patients also accuse the school of failing to protect them after becoming aware of his misconduct. Heaps is still facing criminal charges, which could land him in prison if convicted. Mid-Missouri's only nonstop news is next. 15 minutes of commercial-free news, weather, and traffic. There's a live look over the Missouri River at Rocheport. It's 6:41. This morning we have live coverage from Texas as the entire country is thinking about the victims of the latest elementary school shooting. High gas prices are causing transportation problems for seniors and those with disabilities here in mid-Missouri. Plus, what one organization is doing in Jefferson City to make sure you are protected from the sun this summer. That tops our 15 minutes of commercial-free news, weather, and traffic.
Nonstop news starts now.
Starting off this morning with a live look over Washington, D.C., where flags at the Capitol and the White House are at half-staff this morning to honor the victims of that shooting in Uvalde, Texas. An elementary school there. 19 children and 2 teachers were killed yesterday. Officials identified the gunman as 18-year-old Salvador Ramos, who was a local resident. He was armed with a handgun and possibly a rifle. Investigators say he is among the dead and he acted alone. This morning, we have live coverage from Texas. NBC News' Wendy Wolfert joins us live from Uvalde, Texas right now. What's the latest there, Wendy?
Angie, good morning to you. It was a somber and stormy night here in South Texas. A sliver of good news. A fourth grade teacher who was shot while she was protecting her students managed to survive an intense surgery overnight. Unfortunately, because there are so many others who are hospitalized, the death toll could still rise here. As you mentioned, 19 children ages 7, 8, and 9, and 2 teachers lost their lives in this school that has about a crowd of 600 normal students. When they were wrapping up the school year, it was supposed to be a fancy Footloose themed day yesterday. They were wearing dress-up clothes to celebrate the end of the school year. Unfortunately, it ended in unspeakable tragedy. Governor Greg Abbott says the gunman abandoned his vehicle and then walked in the school just about midday yesterday, armed with a handgun and possibly a rifle. Opened fire while wearing body armor, is what we are told. But this is not the only crime scene. He also, we are told by investigators, shot his grandmother. She has survived, and possibly if investigators, Angie, can manage to talk to her, maybe she could possibly shed some light on this senseless tragedy. Again, as you mentioned, the 18-year-old suspect was a resident of this town, so basically he turned on many of his own, and people are trying to answer what is probably an unanswerable question of why. Why did this have to happen here?
That's terrible news, Wendy. And from what we've read, this is a small town. That's something that a lot of places in America, including here in mid-Missouri, can relate to. This is a small community. Is there any word from the community itself?
It has about 4. You know what we are really gathering is that everybody knows everybody here, even though it's several thousand residents. Most people say if you weren't one of those 21 families who were notified yesterday, you know someone who was related to them or know one of these children. We have talked to several law enforcement officers. Two assistants in the mayor's office were notified yesterday. They lost children. And the law enforcement officers, those first responders who had to come to this scene, it is difficult to talk to them. They break down in tears of what they saw and what they had to confront. Such evil in such a small town. And everyone thinks it can't happen here. Unfortunately, as we are seeing, it can happen anywhere.
All right, thank you, Wendy. She's there at the scene this morning. Now, during an address at the White House, President Biden asked the questions that so many people are asking. He spoke to the nation after coming back from his trip to Asia.
These kinds of mass shootings rarely happen anywhere else in the world. Why? They have mental health problems. They have domestic disputes in other countries. They have people who are lost.
President Biden once again called on Congress to pass sensible gun legislation. Also, he spoke with Texas's governor while Biden was aboard Air Force One. A White House official says the call was to offer any and all assistance to Texas. Governor Abbott spoke about the parents who are mourning right now.
They have every expectation to know that they're going to be able to pick their child up when that school day ends. And there are families who are in mourning right now, and the state of Texas is in mourning with them for the reality that these parents are not going to be able to pick up their children.
A series of Texas gun right laws have come under scrutiny in the wake of the deadly school shooting. Last June, Governor Abbott signed 7 laws, one of which allows people to legally carry handguns without licenses. Here in Missouri, Governor Parson issued a statement after the school shooting. He tweeted, "First Lady Teresa and I are deeply saddened to hear of the tragic news out of Uvalde, Texas. We're praying for the victims and families and friends that they might find strength and peace in such a difficult time." Also last night, Columbia's Mayor Barbara Buffalo reacted to it on social media. She said, "Tonight I attended my daughter's graduation from elementary school. As tears formed in my eyes of the big step this is for my firstborn, many more fell from my eyes for the families of those who will not attend their child's graduation because of senseless gun violence. The shooting in Texas comes just 10 days after another shooting at a supermarket that happened in Buffalo, New York. It adds to the increased violence in the U.S. over the past several years. An FBI report found that in 2021, active shooter incidents surged nearly 97%. That's just compared to 2017. The trend has some lawmakers wanting to find a solution to stop the violence.
Just days after a shooter walked into a grocery store to gun down African American patrons, we have another Sandy Hook on our hands. What are we doing? There have been more mass shootings than days in the year.
According to the Gun Violence Archive, there have been more than 200 mass shootings already this year in the U.S. Coming up in just a few minutes, the Today Show is going to continue the coverage from Texas. Savannah Guthrie will be anchoring from the site of the school shooting. And that's coming up right after KOMU 8 News today. Switching gears, rising gas prices are leaving seniors and people with disabilities without a way to get around. People who rely on OATS transit are in a scheduling jam. OATS used to run Monday through Friday, but budget cuts have now changed pickup times to only Tuesdays and Thursdays for Columbia residents. The changes are causing concern for some riders.
Well, I'd like to know if it's going to be temporary or if it's going to be permanent, because it's a very good service. I've seen various riders on those buses. They've got good equipment and they got a good scheduling service. And when you make an appointment, you know they're coming.
The service is mainly funded by the Federal Transit Association and other local donations. A spokesperson for OATS Transit says they're trying to balance the needs of the riders with budget cuts.
We're constantly looking at our routes and looking at the days of services that we provide, and we try to, consistently evaluate where those routes and days and times all make sense.
The spokesperson said you can call if you have questions or if you need to speak to someone about a specific ride. The phone number is right there on your screen. It's 1-888-875-6287.
All right, let's get a check of your weather here for today. It looks like off and on rain showers will be possible for your morning.
There's an effort in Jefferson City to get more people wearing sunscreen this summer. Miles Against Melanoma donated 15 dispensers filled with sunscreen for Jefferson City Parks and Recreation. The organization raises money and awareness of skin cancer. Dispensers are located throughout the community. They're at the pools, the parks, the camps, the campgrounds, and groups spent about $6,000 to get those dispensers put up. Starting today, the Columbia Farmers Market's expanding with new Wednesday hours for the season. KOMU 8's Jaden Jagdiani joins us live. He's in Columbia right now to tell us more about this new option to shop local. Good morning, Jaden. What's the details?
Good morning. Starting this evening, the new market will be open from 3 to 7 p.m. here at the MU Healthcare Pavilion. There will be numerous activities, including children's events, live music, and even food trucks. The Columbia Farmers Market will partner with Columbia Parks and Recreation Department for the Wednesday market. Food trucks will be there on the second and fourth Wednesday of each month. The Chamber of Commerce will be at the opening later today for a ribbon cutting. The market's executive director says a second day for the market was needed.
With the food truck roundup and we'll have a number of vendors that'll be selling prepared, hot, ready to eat food items as well. But it'll be a great opportunity for people to stop by on their way home from work, to grab dinner.
The market will also continue its normal hours on Saturday from 8 a.m. to noon. Live in Columbia, Jaden Jagtiani, KOMU 8 News.
All right, thanks, Jaden. Hitachi Energy announced it's going to be investing $10 million in its Jefferson City location specifically. Hitachi makes electrical transformers. The money is going to allow for the factory to expand and add 75 more jobs. It currently employs almost 1,000 people. Hitachi says it's looking to hire jobs across all of its shifts. If you're interested, there are currently 32 job openings online, and we've got a link where you can apply on KOMU.com. Time now for KOMU 8's top stories making headlines today. 19 children and 2 teachers are confirmed dead after a gunman opened fire in a Texas elementary school yesterday. Investigators say the gunman, an 18-year-old, was armed with a handgun and possibly a rifle. Officials say he is among the dead and he acted alone. Abbott Labs says it's going to reopen the plant at the heart of the nationwide baby formula shortage on June 4th. Supplies should start hitting store shelves about 2 weeks after that. In the meantime, the second round of Operation Fly formula is arriving today. And starting today, the Columbia Farmers Market is going to be open on Wednesdays for the season. You can shop at the MU Healthcare Pavilion from 3 until 7 on Wednesdays, and the market will still be open during its usual hours on Saturday as well. And those are your top stories. Those are the ones to keep up with this Wednesday.
And a final check of your weather this morning, where it looks like temperatures will be in the 70s today, around 75 with high humidity. So there will be a noticeable mugginess in the air. Tomorrow a little cooler, all day rain expected tomorrow too. Then we finally get out of the sogginess and we get into some sunshine for Friday. Temperatures on Friday up near 71, but with low humidity and sunshine, I look at Friday being the best day out of the week. We do warm up as we get into the weekend hours. Highs this weekend in the 80s. If you're concerned about the rain, well, it looks like it'll be with us at least until about 2 or 3 p.m. in an off and on fashion. A little drier for the 4 to 8 p.m. hours this afternoon and this evening, followed by another round of rain tonight through Thursday. And then we're on to a nice sunny and dry weekend. Angie, right now it looks like Memorial Day weekend. Highs will be in the 80s.
That's a big change. I mean, there's been talking about how cool it's been even today and yesterday. So prepare. It's going to feel more like Memorial Day.
Yeah, it probably will by at least Sunday.
Okay, that's good news. Tim and I will be back at 7:25 to update you on your local news. Ahead onto the Today Show, they'll continue to follow that school shooting at an elementary school in Texas, and they'll look into school security and safety measures to try to help parents and teachers stay safe. Here's Savannah and Hoda.